At the beginning of this story, we meet a boy named Tatsumi. He's a very ambitious but somewhat naive country boy who dreamed of achieving success in the imperial capital. One day, he wanted to save the nation with his skills and sacrifice. It all began when Tatsumi left his small, poor village with two childhood friends, determined to travel to the imperial capital to earn money and help his people. Along the way, Tatsumi encountered a dangerous, first-class beast known as the Earth Dragon, which was attacking two travelers. He acted like a hero, quickly cutting off one of the creature's arms. He then leaped in and finished off the beast with his sword as it fell. The travelers praised his skills and thanked him for his help. After hearing his story, they warned him about the corruption that dominated the capital, and then continued on their way. Upon arriving in the capital, Tatsumi went straight to the military barracks and attempted to apply for a command position. As expected, the recruiter initially offered him only a basic position, but Tatsumi refused and was eventually kicked out. At that moment, a confident and bold-looking blonde woman approached him and said she could help him get a government position if he invited her for a drink. Tatsumi accepted, and the two went to a bar. At the bar, after drinking, the woman claimed to know a government official who could get Tatsumi a commanding position, especially considering his strength, if only he bribed the man with money. Hearing this, Tatsumi was overjoyed and handed over all the money he had earned from killing the beast along the way. The woman promised she would take care of everything, and that he would learn a lot from this experience. Then she simply left with the money, while Tatsumi waited all day at the bar, believing she would return. That evening, the bar owner announced that the place was about to close and that he had been scammed. Upon realizing this, Tatsumi was devastated and stormed out of the bar, cursing the blonde woman. Now penniless, he decided to sit on the sidewalk and spend the night there. But just then, a carriage passed by, and a lady inside got out to offer him help. At first, Tatsumi was suspicious, but the guards told him that Lady Area had a habit of helping people in difficult situations like himself. Having nothing to lose, Tatsumi accepted the generous offer and went with her. At her house, he met her parents and discovered they were very wealthy and lived in a huge mansion. He introduced himself and explained that, on the way to the capital, he and his friends were attacked by bandits and ended up getting separated. Since everyone had agreed to meet in the capital, he continued on his way and was now trying to find them. Upon hearing his story, his father said he could put in a good word for him to an acquaintance in the army and also asked them to search for his missing friends. Tatsumi felt blessed by this help, and his hope and faith in humanity began to recover after the blow he had suffered. The next day, Tatsumi accompanied Area on a shopping trip and chatted briefly with the guards. One of them showed him the imperial palace and explained that, although the emperor was alive, he was still just a child, and the one who truly ruled the country was the prime minister, a deeply corrupt man responsible for the empire's decline. Tatsumi was outraged by the situation and blamed the government for the misery his village was facing. Afterward, the guard showed him a wall of wanted posters, revealing the members of Night Raid, a group of assassins who attacked at night and targeted only high-ranking executives and the capital's elite. The guard warned him to be vigilant, just in case. That night, Area's mother was walking around the mansion until she was suddenly attacked and cut by a pair of large scissors held by a purple-haired girl. Tatsumi sensed a murderous presence and got out of bed to see what was happening. He looked out the window and saw several armed people balanced on wires suspended in the sky. He understood that this was Night Raid and was confused as to why they were attacking such a generous family just because they were rich. He rushed to find Area, determined to protect her. He found her outside the shelter, in the middle of the forest, and promised to protect her. But at that moment, one of the assassins, Akame, appeared and passed Tatsumi in the blink of an eye. She walked straight up to another guard and cut him in half, then walked toward Area. Tatsumi stepped in front of her, forcing Akame to back away. She claimed he wasn't her target, but Tatsumi said he wouldn't let her kill Area. Akame replied that, in that case, she would have no choice but to kill him as well, and the two began to fight with their swords. Tatsumi managed to defend himself for a few blows, but soon Akame pierced his heart, knocking him to the ground. Meanwhile, the blonde woman who had tricked him earlier appeared on the scene and, seeing him fallen, wondered how anyone could be so unlucky. But then Tatsumi got up and revealed that he had been saved by a small amulet, an idol he kept in his inner pocket, a gift from the villagers. Akame tried to deliver the final blow to his neck, but the blonde woman stopped her, saying she owed the boy a favor and wanted to repay him. She told Tatsumi that they didn't kill innocent people, and, to prove it, broke down the shelter door behind them, revealing the horrific reality of their target. Tatsumi entered and discovered that the place place was a torture chamber, with corpses hanging everywhere. He was devastated to see that the body hanging in the center was that of his friend Seo. At that moment, a still-living boy called out to him, revealing himself to be Ieyasu. With his dying breath, he told Tatsumi that Arya had tortured Seo to death. Tatsumi was completely enraged. With the truth exposed, Arya began to insult Seo and the other dead, saying she couldn't bear to see her prettier, and that poor people were nothing more than toys to her, and that there was nothing wrong with playing with her toys. Akim prepared to kill her, but Tatsumi turned and cut Arya in half with his blade. He then ran to Ieyasu and held him in his arms until he took his last breath. The blonde noted that Tatsumi didn't hesitate in killing Arya, and concluded that he was truly strong. She then told Akane that he should join them and dragged Tatsumi with her, forcibly taking him to meet the rest of the group and join Night Raid. Akane revealed that the blonde's name was Leon, and they all returned to base, taking Tatsumi with them. The next day, Tatsumi sat before his two friends' graves, reflecting on the fact that he was now completely alone. Leon appeared and asked if he had decided whether to join the group or not. She took him to meet the other members, starting with a distracted, purple-haired girl named Shiel, and asked for some words of encouragement. Shiel thought for a moment and replied that now that he knew the location of their hideout, if he didn't want to join, they would have to kill him. A true inspiration. Then he met Mine, who approached him and said that someone ugly like him couldn't work with professionals like them. Afterward, they went to the training ground and met Bulat, an extremely muscular man who usually wore his armor during missions. Leon commented that he was strange, and Bulat didn't deny it. Next, they met the perverted spy Luba, and then went to the river to find Akam. Leon revealed that, although Akame had a cute appearance, she was raised in the jungle and was very strong. Akame said that the group's boss and leader had returned, and Tatsumi was finally able to introduce himself to them. The group's leader was a woman named Nejenda, and as soon as she arrived, she asked Leon to gather all the members and said she wanted a detailed report on the young man. After receiving the report, Nejenda offered Tatsumi the opportunity to join the group and stated that if he refused, he could still work in their workshop, but he wouldn't be killed. However, with Tatsumi's demonstrated skills, he would be much more useful as part of the Revolutionary Army's intelligence and assassination team. Nejenda revealed that the group's goal was to rid the nation of its corrupt leaders and that they intended to lead the Revolutionary Army to victory, saving everyone, including the people of Tatsumi's village. Upon hearing this, Tatsumi declared that this meant they were heroic assassins, fighting for good. Everyone burst out laughing and said that, no matter how he wanted to look at it, in the end, they were just common assassins. They killed people, and if captured, they would be sentenced to death, and no one would lift a finger for them. Despite this, Tatsumi believed he was doing the right thing and agreed to join the group. Soon after, the chief assigned Akame to train him and ended the meeting. At first, Tatsumi was tasked with helping out in the kitchen, fishing alongside Akame and preparing meals for everyone, while the others went on intelligence gathering missions. One night, everyone gathered for dinner, and Leon informed them that their current targets were Ogre, a member of the Imperial Police, and an oil merchant named Gamel. According to reports, Gamel committed crimes and bribed Ogre, who in turn blamed the innocent and ordered their executions. The group accepted the mission, and Tatsumi was responsible for eliminating Ogre, while Akame and Leon would take care of Gamel. In the city, Leon told Tatsumi about Akame's past. She explained that, as a child, Akame and her sister were bought by the Empire. The two were forced to participate in assassin training, along with several other children. Akame excelled and became the best among them. The Empire used her to carry out its dirty work, but during a mission, she realized the corruption that pervaded everything and decided to change sides. Since then, she has been on the side of the Revolutionary Army. Tatsumi understood that Leon told this story to show that he was dealing superficially with the idea of killing, and that he should be more careful. After that, the two parted ways and headed towards their targets. Akame and Leon easily eliminated Gamel, while Tatsumi approached Ogre, who was drunk on the streets at night, hidden under a cloak. Tatsumi told the officer he wanted to discuss something important in a more private location. The two headed to a secluded alley, where Tatsumi bowed and asked to be recruited into the Imperial Army. Ogre turned, telling him he should try his luck elsewhere. But he sensed Tatsumi's murderous intent as he prepared to attack him from behind. Ogre turned quickly, but Tatsumi didn't give him a chance and struck him. Ogre fell to the ground, and Tatsumi thought the mission was over, so he started to walk away. However, Ogre got up and began to attack him forcefully. He pushed Tatsumi against a wall and said he must be from Night Raid. Ogre began to insult the group, and Tatsumi retaliated, wanting to silence him. Ogre, however, resisted and stated that, after that, he would kill the widow of the man he had sentenced to death. Upon hearing this, Tatsumi became enraged, rushed forward, and cut off one of Ogre's arms. He then leaped forward and finished him off in the same manner he had done with the Earth Dragon. Mission accomplished. Tatsumi returned to base and informed his boss of his success. Akame checked to see if he was injured and said she was glad he had returned alive. With that mission completed, Negenda assigned him to train with Mine. The next day, assassins from a foreign nation located their base, and they all set out to confront the invaders. During this mission, Bulat showed Tatsumi his imperial reliquary, called Incursio, a suit of armor he wore with a spear. This armor increased his strength and agility, while the spear could cut through enemies with ease. Akame's reliquary was her sword, Murasame, which poisoned with just one cut, killing in seconds. Mine's was an energy weapon called Pumpkin. Shield wielded giant scissors called Ecstasy, capable of blocking bullets and cutting through anything. Lubbock wore a pair of wired gloves called Crosstail. Leon possessed a reliquary belt that transformed her into a Catwoman with heightened senses, superhuman strength, speed, and regeneration. Tatsumi, on the other hand, still used his old, rusty village sword, something more suited to beginners. After defeating the assassins, Tatsumi began his training with Mine the next day. However, this training began with a few energy blasts from Pumpkin and a long walk through shops. Disguised as an investigation, Tatsumi thought it was a waste of time, but Mine took him to the public execution site, where he saw innocent people being hanged and tortured because of the corrupt Prime Minister's policies. The next day, the group received a new mission, to eliminate a distant relative of the Prime Minister named Ayako. They all set out to accomplish this mission together, and Mine killed Ayako with a well-aimed shot from her pumpkin. Meanwhile, the other members of Night Raid dealt with Ayoko's guards and allies. On the way back, Mine told Tatsumi about her past. She revealed that she was born on the western border of the empire and was of mixed race, often treated as a foreigner and subjected to prejudice. After the Revolutionary Army allied with the people of the West, she joined Night Raid and now intended to pave the way to victory, creating a country free of prejudice. Furthermore, she dreamed of becoming rich from her contribution to the war and living a comfortable life. They headed to the rendezvous point with the others, but were surprised by an ambush by the guard leader. He was a skilled martial artist and attacked immediately, knocking Tatsumi away and heading straight for Mine. Mine fired back, trying to keep him away, but he managed to get close. Tatsumi held him back, holding him tightly, urging Mine to shoot, trusting her completely. Mine then fired, and seeing Tatsumi's trust in her, she accepted him as part of the group. A few days later, Tatsumi began training swordsmanship with Bulat at the base. He helped Akame in the kitchen and spent the rest of his time honing his skills. One night, the chief called everyone to a meeting and informed them of their next target, a serial killer who beheaded people for pleasure. They discussed it and concluded that it was Zank, the executioner, who had gone mad and become a murderer. The chief warned that he had stolen an imperial reliquary before escaping, so everyone should be vigilant during the mission. They headed to the city and began patrolling the area. Tatsumi teamed up with Akame, and the two walked for a while. During lunch break, Tatsumi stepped away to relieve himself and saw Seo at the end of the street. He ran to her, but she fled toward the Colosseum, and he decided to pursue her. Once there, he embraced her and called her by name, but realized that instead of his friend, he was holding a muscular stranger. Tatsumi quickly stepped away and drew his sword. The stranger revealed himself to be Zank and began reading Tatsumi's thoughts with the help of his imperial reliquary called the Spectator. At first, he only saw images of Bulat in Tatsumi's thoughts, but he ignored this and went straight to the fight. Tatsumi lunged with his sword, but Zank easily dodged it, as he could predict his movements. Tatsumi tried to attack him again, but Zank ducked and counterattacked with the blade clutched in his hand. Tatsumi tried to overwhelm him with a barrage of thrusts, but Zank dodged them all and retaliated with equal intensity, severing Tatsumi's joints and muscles, leaving him completely incapacitated. Afterward, Tatsumi summoned all his remaining strength and managed to make a small cut on Zank's face, replacing the wounds he had received on his back. He then turned and fell to the ground. As the executioner approached, intent on delivering the final blow. But at that moment, Akame appeared and stopped him. Like a typical anime villain, Zank took off his cloak for no reason and prepared to face Akame with his two blades. Akame advanced with her sword, and the two began exchanging blows with great skill. Akame realized that Zank was following her movements, reading her thoughts. So she cleared her mind and, instead of getting distracted, managed to strike firmly. However, Zank still blocked the attack and struck her in the back. He revealed that he could see even the smallest movements in her muscles with the help of his reliquary, which allowed him to react in time. He then used a technique to make Akame see him as her sister Kiro. He said that now she saw before her the person she loved most, and that, because of that, she couldn't fight. He rushed toward her to attack, but to his surprise, Akame reacted even more forcefully, saying that precisely because she loved her sister, she had attacked with everything she had to end it quickly. Realizing that Akame was even more insane than he, Zank lost control and began a frantic series of thrusts. Akame dodged every blow and finished the fight with a precise cut to his throat. After completing the mission, everyone returned to base, and the next day, Tatsumi woke up in Shiel's care. Her training with him began with exercises in the river, where Tatsumi had to swim wearing heavy armor. After a few laps, he emerged and spoke to Shiel, who told him he had done a good job and that it was important for all assassins to be able to carry their own weight. Tatsumi asked what her role in the group was, and Shiel explained that, because she was so distracted, she always made mistakes in any task she attempted, so she hardly helped with the base's operations anymore. When Tatsumi wanted to know how she became a killer, Shiel revealed that she had once killed a friend's abusive ex-boyfriend in self-defense. In that moment, she felt calm, even though she was normally so clumsy. Days later, the boy's friends attacked her in the streets and said they had killed her parents, and now it would be her turn. Once again, Shiel remained calm and, with her knife, killed them one by one. It was at that moment that she realized that the disorder in her mind had given her an unexpected talent for killing. She then began working as a freelance assassin in the capital until she was recruited by the Revolutionary Army. Tatsumi began to wonder if he really had what it took to be an assassin, but Shiel reassured him that he was already a much better cook than she. Afterwards, they entered the base, and Neigenda handed Tatsumi the Imperial Reliquary recovered from Zank. Tatsumi put on the reliquary sash and tried to read Akame's mind. He guessed she was thinking about meat for dinner, and Akame confirmed it. But Leon pointed out that he hadn't even activated the weapon yet, and that Akame was simply obsessed with meat. Tatsumi then sat down and tried using the reliquary again, and this time it activated, but was quickly rejected as incompatible. Neigenda explained that the reliquary was probably not compatible with him, and that it would be sent to headquarters for analysis. Seeing so many different types of reliquaries, Tatsumi wondered if there were any that could bring the dead back to life. To revive his friends, everyone told him that no such object existed, because if it did, the first emperor who created them would still be alive. This left Tatsumi deeply saddened, and he spent the night crying silently at the feet of his friends' graves. The next day, he was assigned to accompany Leon, who took him to the alleys and slums where he had grown up. There, the two were pursued by people who were after Leon for the money she had earned. During their escape, Tatsumi became separated from Leon and became lost. It was then that a young Imperial police officer named Suryu found him and asked if he was lost. Tatsumi said he wasn't familiar with the area and noticed that the girl had a living reliquary beside her. He remained calm and asked her to help him get out, and the two soon said goodbye. Tatsumi then returned to report this encounter to the group, while the girl decided she would find whoever killed her mentor, Ogre, and take revenge. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister ordered the dispatch of a high-ranking general to deal with the Revolutionary Army, as Esdeath had crushed the enemy forces in the north, burying over 400,000 soldiers under the ice with the power of her reliquary. Back in the slums, Leon and Tatsumi resumed their mission. Their target was now a drug mafia kidnapping young girls from the region to turn them into slaves. Leon activated her reliquary, assumed her transformed form, and took Tatsumi with her into the building. They confirmed their target on the roof and then entered, defeating the mobsters with precision. Meanwhile, Mine and Shiel confronted the drug lord and then began returning to base. Along the way, they were ambushed by Suryu. Mine initiated the fight with a shot from her pumpkin, but Suryu's living reliquary, named Koro, jumped and blocked the attack. Soryu began shooting at both of them and ordered Koro to attack Shiel. Shiel managed to cut off the creature's head with her scissors and began advancing, but soon realized that Koro was still alive and preparing to attack her again. Mine saved her by firing an energy shot that drove the creature away. She explained that living reliquaries have a core, and that if this core is not destroyed, they continue to function. At that moment, Soryu ordered Koro to transform, gaining muscular arms, and ordered him to attack. Shiel used her reliquary as a shield to block Koro's heavy blows. Taking advantage of this distraction, Soryu blew her whistle to call for reinforcements, and the situation began to worsen for the Night Raid girls. Sensing danger, Mine fired a powerful shot with the pumpkin, knocking Koro away. Shiel then took the opportunity to attack Soryu, pushing her back into the forest, trying to defend herself. Soryu stumbled and fell. Shiel cut off her hands with the scissors. However, Soryu revealed two weapons hidden in her elbows and attempted a surprise shot, but Shiel blocked the shots with her reliquary and then cut off her enemy's arms as well. With no other options left, Soryu revealed her final trump card, causing Koro to unleash his monstrous form, transforming into a rampaging version. Koro grabbed Mine and began crushing her, so Shiel left Soryu aside to try to save her companion. She managed to cut off the creature's arm and free Mine, but at that moment, Soryu took advantage of the distraction and shot Shiel with a gun hidden in her own mouth. Soon after, Koro bites Shiel in half, and the group loses one of its most beloved members. Soon after, enemy reinforcements arrive and surround Mine, but Shiel, using her last breath, activates her reliquary's special ability to blind all the enemies and allow Mine to escape. Back at base, Mine reports Shiel's death, and everyone is saddened by the news. Tatsumi loses control and decides to go out to avenge his comrade, but Bulat knocks him down with a punch and tells him to calm down until a plan can be devised. Mine promises to kill Soryu with her own hands, and everyone ends the day with a successful mission, but one that came at a heavy cost. Meanwhile, Soryu returns to the capital and informs the Prime Minister of her victory. She states that she will now take responsibility for personally eliminating Night Raid. The king asks what she would like as a reward, and surprisingly, she replies that she would like to fall in love. She then says she has a specific type of person she prefers and begins writing down her demands. Soon after, she sends 3 members of her unit to assassinate honest city officials who oppose the Prime Minister, leaving leaflets bearing the Night Raid symbol at the scene to try to frame them. The next day, Tatsumi feels the weight of Shiel's loss and wonders how Akame manages to remain so calm. But that night, he finds her, and she breaks down in tears, revealing that she, too, is heartbroken over her friend's death, but needs to keep her feelings in check so it doesn't affect her mission. The next day, Magenda summons everyone and informs them of the officer's murders and the new mission. She sends Leon to spy on the capital and discover what the enemies are planning. Tatsumi, Bulat, Akame, and Lubbock are divided into 2 teams and tasked with protecting 2 officers who are likely to be the next targets. The mission is to stop the enemies and unmask those trying to frame them. The next morning, Tatsumi and Bulat board a massive cruise ship to protect the designated officer, while Akame and Lubbock remain in the capital to look after the other. Akame hopes they both return safely, as she doesn't want to lose anyone else. Meanwhile, Leon encounters Esdeath and realizes that, at this point, she's just a supporting character and would certainly die if she attacked her, so she decides to retreat quietly. On the ship, Tatsumi observes the officer he's supposed to protect and wonders how anyone could commit murder with so many people around. He considers relaxing for a bit, but Bulat, using his invisibility armor, hits him and reminds him to focus on the mission. Tatsumi comments on how useful Bulat's invisibility is. Bulat explains that he's been wearing the armor since his time in the Imperial Army, when he fought with all his might, but that none of that mattered when his general was falsely accused of refusing to bribe the Prime Minister. Despite all his efforts, the general was taken to the capital and never seen again. Afterward, Bulat himself was accused, and he fled with the Incursio armor and joined the Revolutionary Army to fight against the corrupt government. As the story ends, the armor begins to lose its invisibility, signaling that it needs to be recharged. Bulat then leaves Tatsumi alone on deck and goes to recharge it. During lunch, flute music begins to play, and everyone on board falls asleep. Tatsumi realizes something is wrong and rushes to the deck, discovering that they are under attack. Among Esdeath's men, the loudest, Deidara, emerges from the darkness. He throws a broadsword at Tatsumi and challenges him to combat, saying he wants to gain experience to become the strongest. He then reveals his small axes and charges. Tatsumi impulsively initiates the fight, attempting a leap with a sword attack, but Deidara easily repels him. He then throws one of his axes like a boomerang, hitting Tatsumi on the return. Deidara reveals that his Imperial reliquary is called Belvark and throws one of his weapons again. Tatsumi attempts a maneuver inspired by known combat tactics, but Bulat interrupts his attempt and prevents him from acting rashly. Deidara asks who he is and why he wasn't affected by the flute's music, and Bulat replies that it was because of his willpower. However, Deidara notices the wound on his leg and deduces that he actually injured himself deliberately to resist the technique. Bulat asks Tatsumi to observe the battle closely and activates the Incursio armor. At that moment, Esdeath's other two subordinates appear and attack him together. Tatsumi thinks Bulat won't resist, but Bulat quickly repels two of them and splits Deidara in half with his spear, finishing him off with a well-aimed blow. Tatsumi finally understands Bulat's true strength, who advises him to always be aware of his surroundings. One of the enemies stands up and walks toward Bulat. Calling him by name, he reveals himself as General Liver, the same one who had served as Bulat's commander in the past and was falsely accused. With no time for reconciliation, the two begin to fight, and Liver reveals his Imperial reliquary, which has the power to control liquids. He creates water serpents and launches them at Bulat, but Bulat faces them all head-on, easily cutting them down. Meanwhile, Tatsumi faces another enemy named Niao, known for his skill with sound. Liver begins intensifying his attacks with multiple jets of water, but even in mid-air, Bulat manages to counter him and launches an attack with his spear. Niao tries to interfere, but Bulat kicks him away. Bulat then faces Liver again, but Incursio begins to fail from overuse, and Bulat realizes that Liver can no longer use his reliquary either. On equal terms, the two began to fight with swords. Bulat managed to seriously wound Liver, but not before the general injected him with poison blood. Now only Niao remained, but Bulat was already seriously injured, and Tatsumi had already lost to him. Niao used the hidden ability of his reliquary to transform his body and increase his strength. To give Tatsumi a chance, Bulat handed him the Incursio key and asked him to use it. Tatsumi injected his energy into the armor, which materialized and adapted to his body. After the transformation, Tatsumi faced Niao head-on and defeated him with a single blow. Once again, the mission was successfully completed, and the group recovered 3 Imperial reliquaries, but paid the price with Bulat's life. A few days later, Negenda departed for the Revolutionary Army headquarters to deliver the reliquaries they had captured and request reinforcements, as 2 valuable members had been lost. She left Akame in charge of the group and authorized her to train the others while she was away. Mine also recovered from her injuries and began training alongside the others. On the other side, Esdeath organized a special unit of 6 reliquary-bearing warriors, called the Jaegers. Among the members were a country boy named Wave, who had served in the Imperial Navy and looked a lot like Tatsumi, Kurom, Akame's younger sister, the unstable Suryu, an eccentric doctor named Stylish, a strange and frightening man named Bollock, and Run, a cocky fellow who thought he was the smartest of the group. After the introductions, everyone sat down with Esdeath, who declared that she wanted to fall in love, and that they were also looking for someone compatible with the scissor-shaped reliquary they had recovered from Sheol. To find a suitable warrior, they decided to hold a martial arts tournament in the city. In the capital, Tatsumi went to Lubbock's shop, where there was a secret underground base. He asked Lubbock and Leon about Esdeath and why everyone feared her, and they told him about her brutal combat style and battle-obsessed nature. Afterward, Lubbock suggested that Tatsumi participate in the tournament to observe her closely, and mentioned that if she won, she could send the money back to her village. Tatsumi agreed and signed up for the event. On the day of the tournament, Tatsumi easily defeated all his opponents and smiled when he heard the audience's applause. It turned out that Esdeath was looking for a strong young man with an innocent smile who was easy to manipulate. Somehow, Tatsumi fit all these criteria, and Esdeath fell in love with him at first sight. She stepped down from the podium, approached him, and said she would personally reward him for his victory. Then, she fastened a necklace around his neck and took him with her, kidnapping him in front of everyone. Back at base, the other night raid members began devising a plan to rescue Tatsumi, and decided to move the base deeper into the mountains. The following night, Esdeath took Tatsumi on a mission and told him he would observe the Jaegers defeat enemy forces. She assured him he would be a support unit for the group and that she would train him herself. Tatsumi considered using this opportunity to win her over over to the Revolutionary Army, but he was also afraid of her strength. Later, in their room, he tried to convince her, but Esdeath explained that she believed in the survival of the fittest and would never support the Revolutionary Army. Tatsumi was furious upon hearing this and rejected her feelings. Esdeath then arrested him and asked the members of her unit if anyone had ever experienced a love story. Surprisingly, Bollock revealed that he had been married for 6 years and said that persistence was the key, adding that he had been rejected twice before being accepted. Esdeath wrote everything down and decided to win Tatsumi over. The next day, Tatsumi got to know the other members of the group better and discovered, among other things, that Kirome was Akame's sister. He was then sent on a hunting mission and paired with Wave, who seemed like an alternate version of himself. Along the way, the two talked, and Tatsumi realized that Wave was a good guy who truly believed he was fighting for justice by serving in the Imperial Army. They fought some forest creatures, and Tatsumi seized the opportunity to escape using Incursio's invisibility and speed. After defeating the monsters, Wave noticed that Tatsumi had disappeared and panicked, imagining Esdeath's reaction. He then activated his reliquary, Grand Chariot, a more advanced version of Incursio, and sped off until he reached Tatsumi. Wave, thinking he was facing Bulat or another Night Raid member, began fighting directly. Tatsumi tried to flee, but Wave was stronger and faster in every way, even breaking part of Incursio's armor with a kick. Tatsumi was thrown into the river and seized the opportunity to escape with the armor's invisibility, which he could only maintain for a few seconds. Wave thought he had escaped and decided to move on to find him. Meanwhile, Tatsumi was attacked by a dangerous beast while still recovering, but Akame appeared to save him. The two fled and returned to base accompanied by Lubbock. At base, Tatsumi reported everything he had learned about the Jaeger's reliquaries and abilities. He said they were all as strong as the Night Raid members, but that Esdeath was a different story. Akame commented that, despite Esdeath's power, she had a weakness, she was still human, and as long as she had a beating heart, Akame's reliquary could kill her with just one cut. Meanwhile, in the capital, Esdeath punished Wave for letting Tatsumi escape, saying she wouldn't accept a second failure. Suryu was also unable to track them, but Dr. Stylish discovered the location of Night Raid's base with the help of his chimeric experiments. Instead of informing Esdeath, he decided to attack alone with his army of mutant prisoners. The attack began when one of the chimeras surprised Leone and seemingly killed her. At that moment, Lubbock realized they were under attack thanks to his reliquary and warned the others. He was attacked by several flexible chimeras, difficult to cut with their threads, but managed to take one down by creating a spear with his reliquary and piercing it. He was then pursued by other similar enemies, but Akame appeared and quickly destroyed them. Next, she was attacked by a mechanical chimera with an iron body resistant to the poison of her Murasama sword. She began fighting it, while Lubbock faced two metal golems. Meanwhile, Tatsumi jumped from a building using Incursio and began taking down several enemies with his blows. He was then challenged by a man wielding a scissor-shaped reliquary with a shield. Upon seeing the weapon, Tatsumi became enraged and charged to confront him, but his opponent retaliated with the scissors, breaking his guard. Tatsumi tried to attack him again, but was repelled and nearly received the final blow. At that moment, Mine appeared with her pumpkin weapon and taunted the enemy. She concentrated the energy of the shot, allowing him to approach, and then fired a powerful shot that eliminated him instantly, recovering the Extase reliquary. Dr. Stylish was frustrated at losing the reliquary, but then everyone noticed a giant flying creature, similar to a manta ray, hovering overhead with Negenda and two new Night Raid members. Meanwhile, Akame and Lubbock finished their fights and joined the others. The chimera that had attacked Leone tried to surprise Mine, but before she could do anything, Leone reappeared and eliminated the enemy in one fell swoop. She revealed that she had healed herself with the power of her reliquary and that she was fine. Everyone gathered and soon realized they were surrounded by the remaining chimeras. They decided to finish them off quickly, but suddenly everyone fell, except Tatsumi, who was using Incursio. Dr. Stylish revealed that he had released a paralytic poison into the field and that it was now taking effect. Tatsumi considered protecting everyone alone, but at that moment, Negenda sent one of the new recruits to help him. A blue-haired man named Susano appeared, wielding a massive blade, and began eliminating all the enemies with ease. Dr. Stylish tried to blow up the enemies' bodies, hoping to injure Susano, but he quickly healed, revealing that he was actually an Imperial reliquary in human form. Seeing his soldiers defeated, Dr. Stylish tried to flee, but Susano caught up with him and stopped him. The doctor then decided to fight and injected himself with a special serum that transformed him into a giant. Faced with the immense creature, the group decided to face it directly. Susanoo blocked the enemy's movements, while Tatsumi climbed onto its back with Negenda to reach the creature's head, where the doctor's true body lay. Mine knocked the giant down with an energy blast, and Akame finished the fight by slashing it with her poison sword. After the battle, everyone met with Negenda, who introduced the new recruits. The group then moved to an even more secluded area in the mountains, where they would be harder to find. The new introductions began. First was Chelsea, a skilled assassin with almost as many kills as Akame. Cheerful and intelligent, she managed to win Akame over with sweets and even irritate Mine with some provocations. On the other hand, Susanoo revealed himself to be a strong and imposing man whose special skill was caring for everyone like a sort of mother figure. He knew how to cook, clean, do laundry, manage finances, and even build a house from scratch. Everyone began to get along well with each other, except for Lubbock, who saw Susanoo as a sort of male competitor, even though he was a reliquary, and Mine, who was constantly irritated by Chelsea. In the capital, Suryu mourned the death of the doctor, whom she considered her mentor after Ogre, and Esdeath went to console her, leading Suryu to decide to dedicate her life to her. Wave walked beside Kurome and decided to act like a man, cheering Suryu up the way his mother had taught him when he was little, but realized he was too late when he saw Esdeath hugging Suryu. At Night Raid's new base, Negenda gathered everyone and informed them that the final battle for the revolution was approaching. Therefore, they would spend the next month in intensive training to hone their skills. After a series of training sessions in the mountains, everyone felt stronger, and Tatsumi learned to use the Incursio spear. It was also discovered that Susanoo had remained inactive since his former master's death, but decided to follow Negenda because she resembled his former commander. Chelsea's reliquary was a makeup case that allowed her to completely shapeshift and transform into any other living being. At the end of the training, Chelsea observed the group and commented that, although they were good fighters, they were still not up to the level of those who had died and needed to toughen up further. This angered Lubbock, Tatsumi, and Mine, who interpreted it as an insult to Bulat and Shiel, so they planned a prank on her. Lubbock and Tatsumi devised a plan to pour a bucket of water over her head during her nightly bath, hoping to embarrass her. But in reality, Lubbock simply wanted to test his limits as a spy and push Tatsumi into the mission, using his invisibility ability. Tatsumi crept forward with the bucket, but suddenly, it was Susanoo, not Chelsea, who emerged from the water. He claimed he could sense Tatsumi's presence even without seeing him. Tatsumi acknowledged his mistake, appeared, and apologized. At that moment, Susanoo transformed back into Chelsea, revealing that she had sensed someone approaching, and used her reliquary to play a prank. She explained that her former team had died on a mission, which was why she was so strict with the others, not wanting to lose anyone else. Tatsumi realized his mistake, apologized again, and left, but not before hearing the warning that if he tried to spy on her again, she would severely punish him. A few days later, a new problem arose in the capital. Several dangerous beasts with human appearances began appearing in the forests and mines, attacking and devouring anyone they encountered. The situation worsened when these creatures began invading homes and devouring people alive. Their numbers grew rapidly, and chaos descended. The Prime Minister sent Esdeath and her squad to capture some of these beasts for his own enjoyment, while the rest of the Imperial Army was ordered to exterminate them. The mission was easily accomplished thanks to the Ice General's strength. Esdeath ordered Run to investigate the origin of these new beasts and see if there was any connection to Dr. Stylish's disappearance and his human experiments. Meanwhile, the Jaegers awaited further orders and conversed among themselves. Wave was disturbed to see Bowles being judged by his appearance, despite being a good person. However, Bowles revealed that he was not a good man, having burned villages and burned people alive on orders, even when they begged for mercy. Just then, his wife and daughter arrived with lunch, and Wave realized that, in the romance department, he was a failure compared to Bowles. After completing his investigation, Run informed him that these beasts had once been human and had likely been transformed by an Imperial reliquary. There was a possibility that they were escaped specimens from Dr. Stylish's experiments. Esdeath ordered him to continue investigating to determine whether they had escaped or been intentionally released, and whether someone was behind this attack. Back in the forest, Tatsumi continued his training alongside Susanoo when Akame appeared to inform him of the new orders. Everyone returned to base, and Negenda explained the dangerous beasts that were attacking people and appearing out of nowhere in the forests. This time, Night Raid's objective coincided with the Empire's: eliminate the creatures. The group would operate at night to avoid confrontation with the Imperial Army and remain hidden until the final battle began. At first, Chelsea was skeptical about this heroic role of saving people, but Tatsumi managed to convince her with a pep talk. He would have made a good impression if Susano hadn't mentioned that his pants were open during the entire meeting. During the night patrol, Tatsumi paired up with Lubbock to scout the mountains, but they didn't encounter any beasts. On the way, Tatsumi asked why Lubbock called Negenda by her name instead of boss. Lubbock explained that he had known Negenda since before the formation of the Revolutionary Army. He said that, when he was still young, he was part of a rich family of merchants and was bored with the world because he already had everything. Everything changed when Negenda was sent to his city, and he fell in love with her at first sight. He joined the Imperial Army, rose through the ranks to be by her side, and when they joined the revolution, he faked his own death so he could fight for love. Upon hearing this, Tatsumi headed to the top of the mountain for a final inspection. At the top, Tatsumi surveyed his surroundings and, seeing no danger, equipped the Incursio and prepared to descend. But suddenly, Esdeath fell from the sky like a blood angel, ready to hunt down members of Night Raid. She was on a random night patrol and, upon seeing someone at the top of the mountain, thought it was an enemy. However, upon realizing it was Tatsumi, her expression changed. At that moment, they were surrounded by dozens of beasts, and Tatsumi thought it was his chance to escape, but Esdeath quickly eliminated them all and returned to face him. She approached, hugged him from behind, and said she was on patrol and was overjoyed to find him. She asked what he was doing there, and Tatsumi replied that he was training and fighting the beasts. She asked if he had joined the Revolutionary Army, and he said he hadn't yet, but that he wouldn't change his mind. Esdeath then praised his strength and called someone hidden behind the rocks. A silver-haired, hooded man appeared and used his reliquary, Shambhala, to teleport them both to a remote island. On the island, Tatsumi wondered if it was an illusion and asked Esdeath to pinch him, but she kissed him and told him it was real, as she could sense everything normally. She stated that it was probably the power to manipulate space and that the man must be a very strong reliquary user. Then, she used her ice powers to create a pillar, and they both climbed it to try to understand where they were. They discovered they were surrounded by open water, in the middle of the ocean. Suddenly, a gigantic mutant titan emerged from the forest and attacked them. Tatsumi realized that the monster resembled Dr. Stylish's final form, and that, at the time, it had taken the entire group's combined effort to defeat it. He wondered how they would defeat it, but Esdeath demonstrated her power and pierced the titan with several ice spears. Even wounded, the monster continued to move, so Tatsumi advanced and finished it off by striking its main body. Soon after, another titan appeared from behind, but Esdeath crushed it with a massive ice sphere that appeared out of nowhere. Watching it, Tatsumi recognized her power and wondered how Akame could defeat her. Afterward, they rested and caught their breath. Tatsumi asked what they would do next, and Esdeath replied that they would explore the island to find out where they were and how to get back. They spent the rest of the day walking, and Esdeath enjoyed it as a romantic getaway. That night, she tried to get Tatsumi's attention again, but he refused to make any advances unless she gave up helping the Prime Minister. Esdeath took him back to the point from which they had been transported and explained that the reliquary could likely only send them to predetermined locations, so it was likely that the portal would open there again in the future, and that they should wait for that to return. Furthermore, Esdeath demonstrated that she could tame a dangerous beast and that they could use it to return to the capital. Then she pushed Tatsumi to the ground and said she wanted to enjoy that moment with him a little longer. She asked how he learned to use the sword. Tatsumi told her he was from a village where a retired soldier taught him both swordsmanship and weapon forging. He said he wanted to learn many skills to succeed in the capital. Then he asked about her past. Esdeath told him she was the daughter of the chief of a northern tribe. She grew up in a hostile environment where only the strongest survived, and that was how her father raised her. One day, the Northerners attacked her tribe and killed her father, but to her, this only proved that the enemies were stronger, so if she wanted to survive, she too needed to become stronger. After the destruction of her tribe, she began hunting dangerous beasts alone, until their numbers began to dwindle. Then she moved to the capital and joined the army. For her, it simply switched from hunting beasts to killing humans, and it made no difference. Tatsumi asked about her reliquary, and she explained that it manipulated the blood of a dangerous beast, which gave her complete control over ice, as well as intensifying her desire to kill and becoming even more powerful. Hearing all this, Tatsumi realized that, no matter how hard he tried, he would never be able to change her mind. He felt sad and terrified at the thought of facing her as an enemy in the future. In the capital, it was revealed that the silver-haired man was Sura, the Prime Minister's son. He activated his reliquary and opened the portal back. Tatsumi went through first, seizing the opportunity to escape Esdeath. Upon returning, he equipped Incursio, turned invisible, and hid behind a rock until Esdeath left. Tatsumi reasoned that the next time they met, they would be on opposing sides. After Esdeath left, Tatsumi returned to base and shared everything he had learned with Negenda and the others. It was also revealed that Negenda was in her early 20s, in case anyone was curious. After the meal, she announced that the Revolutionary Army would take the first step in overthrowing the corrupt government, and that they would discuss strategy after dinner. Negenda explained that a religious group called the Path of Peace was gaining a large following in the east. This group would soon rise up in arms against the government and lead the people in a revolt against the empire. Tatsumi questioned whether they should try to prevent this, as it would result in many deaths, but Negenda replied that the people had already suffered enough and were willing to sacrifice themselves for a better future. She explained that in the past, other groups had also tried to fight the empire, such as the people of the north, but were always defeated. Therefore, this time, the strategy would be different. They would join forces with the other groups and attack the empire from all sides. The moment the religious uprising began, the Revolutionary Army would launch a large-scale attack from the south, while allies from the west would invade imperial territory, creating a three-pronged attack. Negenda explained that the empire had concentrated most of its troops in the south to contain the Revolutionary Army's advance. However, due to corruption and widespread discontent, many officials would turn against the government and allow the revolutionary troops to pass through unopposed. With chaos ensuing, the empire would likely send Supreme Commander Budo to contain the surrendered troops, and this would be the opportunity to infiltrate the palace and eliminate Prime Minister Honest. Negenda then explained that their mission would be to eliminate Balak, the advisor to the Path of Peace's founder. It turned out that Balak was a spy sent by the Prime Minister to take control of the religious group. He poisoned his followers' food with substances that turned them into obedient puppets. Night Raid's mission was to kill him to ensure the religious uprising went smoothly. Furthermore, headquarters requested that they eliminate Bowles and Kirom from the Jaegers, as they could be dangerous enemies in this war. To launch their plan, they would use the markings on their backs to lure the Jaegers out of the capital and face them in a final battle before the revolution began. In the capital, Run informed Esdeath that Ekhame and Mine had been spotted near the eastern side of Romery Street. Esdeath immediately gave the order to gather the Jaegers and set off to hunt them down. Revolutionary Army spies observed the movement and sent a messenger bird to Negenda, informing her of Esdeath and her group's departure. Negenda decided to head east toward the Path of Peace, while the rest of Night Raid headed west, leaving Ekhame and Mine as bait, as their faces were on the wanted posters. Esdeath realized this was no coincidence and that it was a trap. She divided her group into two teams. She, Suryu, and Run would head east after Negenda, while the rest of the Jaegers would head west in search of Ekhame and Mine. Kirom, Wave, and Bowles headed west to confront them. Along the way, they encountered a strange scarecrow in the middle of the road and wondered what it could be. Mine tried to shoot Kirom from a distance, but she dodged at the last moment. At that moment, Susano emerged from the scarecrow and struck Wave with a powerful blow, knocking him away. Negenda then appeared with the rest of Night Raid, revealing that everything had gone according to plan and that Kirom and Bowles were now cornered. Ekhame confronted Kirom, while Tatsumi, Leon, and Negenda faced Bowles. The situation seemed favorable, but Kirom activated her reliquary, Yatsufusa, which allowed her to summon and control the dead, transforming anyone she killed with her sword into part of her zombie army. The battle began with her summoning the remains of an ultra-dangerous giant-class beast called the Stagul, along with 7 zombies of former comrades. Ekhame saw this as a chance, as controlling so many bodies at once would slow Kirom down, so she charged straight at her sister. The two began to fight, but the zombie of a childhood friend of theirs joined the battle, making it a 2-on-1 match, forcing Ekhame to retreat from atop the Stagul. Bowles seized the opportunity and fired his flamethrower at Akame, but Tatsumi saved her in time, urging her to remain calm so they could win together. Akame then ordered the beast to destroy the canyon with its energy breath, and Night Raid took the opportunity to hide in the forest and ambush Kurome. Mine tried to shoot again, but was thwarted by two zombies, one armed with a spear and the other with two firearms. Akame began fighting Bowles while the others faced their opponents in 2-on-1 battles. Susanoo told Negenda he could face the Stagul alone and asked her to help the others. Negenda then went to support Leone, who was facing the zombie of a former Imperial Army general, similar to her. Together, they managed to force him to retreat, but Kurome took advantage of the distraction and cut off one of Leone's arms. Even so, Leone used her monstrous strength to stem the bleeding and followed Negenda's orders, going to help Akame fight Bowles. The two began to face him along with another zombie, who had been a powerful bodyguard. Meanwhile, Negenda fought the former general and managed to decapitate him. However, being a zombie, the body kept moving, and she was enraged at the sight of her old friend's mutilated body. Susanoo kept the giant beast occupied, and Negenda allowed him to use his secret ability if necessary. Meanwhile, Tatsumi fought a gorilla zombie and a masked zombie. He was having trouble being attacked by both at the same time, but Chelsea came to his aid, and he managed to cut the masked zombie in half. He then destroyed the gorilla zombie with his Incursio enhanced attacks. Mine also defeated the armed enemy facing her, but was soon captured by an amphibious beast zombie. Kurome appeared and declared it fitting that Mine should die in a similar manner to Shield, and the creature swallowed Mine along with her reliquary. Tatsumi arrived and began fighting the spear zombie controlled by Kurome. At the same time, Susanoo activated his secret ability, which allowed him to go berserker by consuming his master's life force. He used this power to destroy the giant creature with a single attack. He then followed Negenda to reunite with Tatsumi. Mine managed to escape by exploding the creature's stomach from the inside out, and everyone gathered around Kurome and the spear zombie for the final confrontation. Meanwhile, Akame managed to cut off the bodyguard zombie's legs and charged straight at Bowles. Leone took advantage of the distraction to attack, but Akame was hit in the arm by a shot from the falling zombie. Even wounded, she ripped out the reliquary with her teeth and bit down hard on Bowles' hands with her beastly jaws. With him unable to use the reliquary, the Night Raid members pressured him to surrender. Bowles admitted he could no longer use his equipment, but replied that he would then blow them all up at once. He threw his reliquary into the air and detonated it, causing a devastating explosion. Tatsumi used Incursio to protect the others, acting as a shield. Leone saved Akame by holding the zombie bodyguard's shield and shielding himself from the blast with his own body. Leone assured him he would be fine because of his reliquary's regenerative ability, though he needed time to recover. Kurome also survived the explosion, and Bowles, surprisingly, escaped with his life and fled into the forest. As he ran, Bowles considered reuniting with Kurome, but found a little girl crying beside a tree with a wound in her knee. He approached to help her, but was stabbed with a poison needle. The girl revealed herself to be Chelsea, in disguise, a resident of a village Bowles had burned down. Soon after, Lubbock appeared and informed her that Kurome had escaped, but he knew the direction she had gone. Chelsea said she would go after her to finish the job, otherwise Kurome would create more zombies and attack them again. She asked Lubbock to return to base and send reinforcements. While she went ahead, Lubbock returned to base and explained what had happened, and the others sent Tatsumi and Akame to bring Chelsea back safely. Meanwhile, Chelsea transformed into Bowles and went to meet Kurome. She explained that she had learned the speech patterns and personalities of all the Jaegers thanks to the information Tatsumi provided, and used this to completely deceive Kurome. Walking beside her, Kurome suddenly fell and said that the drugged cookies were gone and that she needed them immediately. Chelsea leaned in to touch her and stabbed her with a poison needle. Believing she had defeated her, she grabbed Kurome's sword and started to walk away, but Kurome got back up and revealed that, due to the effects of a new drug she was taking, she had become immune to this type of poison. She said she would only die if her heart stopped or if her head was cut off. She then retrieved her sword and freed the spearmen and snipers zombies, ordering them to pursue Chelsea. Chelsea threw a smoke bomb and tried to flee, but was quickly overtaken by the spearman's zombie, which cut off her arm, while the sniper shot her. Thus, Chelsea, one of the most beloved characters after Shield, met a brutal end. In the city, Tatsumi and Akame continued searching for Chelsea. Following a trail of blood that led from the forest to the city center, Tatsumi ran through the streets and reached the main square, where a crowd had gathered gathered around something. When he looked up to see what everyone was watching, he fell to his knees upon realizing it was Chelsea's head, impaled on a spike. Afterward, everyone returned to base and continued their mission, hearts heavy but determined to make the revolution happen. It was also revealed that Leon managed to reattach her arm with the help of the regenerative properties of her reliquary and Lubbock's threads. The next morning, everyone headed east to deal with the religious group's advisor so the revolution could begin. Meanwhile, Esdeath met with advisor Balak and told him that she and the Jaegers would act as his bodyguards against the Night Raid members, who they believed had already infiltrated the east. Balak welcomed them and explained that he had been protected by 4 Rakshasa demons thanks to the Prime Minister, but that now they could be used to attack. They decided to send them into the city to search for Night Raid members to eliminate them. Wave noticed that Kirom had not yet recovered from her injuries from the previous battle and was overexerting herself. He confronted her and said he would ask Esdeath's permission to spare her from the mission, but Kirom explained that if she were removed from the Jaegers, she would be killed for being an assassin for the Empire. She said she did not want that fate, and that if she had to die, she would rather die fighting like her comrades. During the night, Akim met with Revolutionary Army spies to exchange information, but they were killed by Abara, one of the 4 Rakshasa demons. Akim engaged Abara in combat, who demonstrated an extremely flexible body. She struggled initially, but managed to cut him in half and emerged victorious. However, she was observed by Run, who thanked her for seeing her reliquary in action, and then flew off to report everything to Esdeath. Elsewhere, Lubbock was ambushed by Sten and Mez, also members of the Rakshasa demons. They suspected he was part of Night Raid because of his coded clothing and scouting stance. Sten managed to land a blow on Lubbock and knocked him down. Lubbock then feigned death, using his threads to temporarily stop his own heart, trying to convince them he was defeated. However, the demons found a young girl, a spy for the revolution, and decided to kill her. Faced with this, Lubbock reacted and rose, determined to face them in battle. He activated his threads and began fighting them both simultaneously. He created an axe with his threads to attack, while keeping part of them for defense. Lubbock struck Sten with the axe, but Sten caught the blow with his bare hands. He said it was pointless to confront him like that, but Lubbock revealed that his goal was merely to distract them. When they turned around, they saw that the girl had managed to escape. Mission accomplished. Lubbock tried to escape, but Sten chased after him and ended up trapped in the wires. First, he hit a wire that nearly severed his head. Then Lubbock pierced him in the chest with a wire spear. He then manipulated the wires inside Sten's body to crush his heart, defeating the enemy definitively. Afterward, Lubbock faced Mez, surrounding her with a net of wires. Mez used a secret ninja technique and coated the wires with a viscous liquid, rendering them useless. She then knocked Lubbock down with a kick and closed in for the kill. Lubbock threw 2 knives as a last resort, but Mez easily dodged them. She prepared to grab him and end his life, but the knives returned, piercing her back and heart. It was revealed that Lubbock had attached wires to the knives, allowing him to control them remotely. Thus, he managed to escape, defeating 2 major enemies single-handedly. While everyone faced difficult battles, Mine and Tatsumi, for once, were lucky. They encountered no enemies along the way. Instead, they ended up meeting the leader and founder of the religious group, who saw them arguing and thought they looked cute together, starting to root for them as a couple. After the reconnaissance mission, everyone gathered and decided to go ahead with the plan to assassinate Balak during the religious organization's anniversary festival. They split into 2 groups. Tatsumi and Mine formed a duo tasked with attracting as many enemies as possible, while the rest of the group would infiltrate Balak's building to eliminate him. Suzanova and Leon used all their brute force and broke in through the front door to lure Kirom and Wave, while Tatsumi and Mine managed to get Suryu and the last demon, Suzuka, to follow them. They led the 2 to some ancient ruins outside the city, where Suryu initiated the fight by launching a weapons attack on them. Tatsumi then grabbed Mine and escaped with the help of his reliquary. They were then attacked by Suzuka, and Tatsumi confronted her directly, driving her into the ruins, while Mine prepared to shoot Suryu and exact revenge on Shiel. Suryu noticed her presence and launched her most powerful missile, but Mine responded with an energy blast from her pumpkin gun. Suryu lunged at Mine along with her relic dog, but Mine shot the animal down and began modifying her weapon to end the battle. Suryu threatened to kill her and feed her to her dog, just as she had done with Shiel and Chelsea's bodies. This made Mine lose her temper, and she fired a barrage of energy projectiles that damaged the dog's core. Suryu was forced to use her last resort, causing her reliquary to self-destruct, but Mine managed to retreat in time and avoid the impact. Suryu continued chasing her and tried to hit her with the gun hidden in her mouth. Mine blocked the shots with her gun, but Suryu took the opportunity to deliver a violent punch to her stomach, throwing her away. Meanwhile, Tatsumi continued fighting Suzuka inside the ruins and decided to bury her by destroying the walls and pillars of the old building. As the rubble collapsed, he used Incurzio's power to propel himself upward and definitively defeated Suzuka. Outside, Suryu approached Mine to finish her off, and even with her dying breath, the dog also tried to attack her. Mine, determined not to die there, grabbed her weapon, set it to energy beam mode, and fired a devastating attack that pierced both the dog and Suryu simultaneously, ending the fight. However, as she was about to fall, Suryu triggered the powerful bomb installed in her head. Mine tried to move, but was too injured to escape. She cursed her fate, but was saved by Tatsumi, who arrived in time to shield her from the blast. From that moment on, Tatsumi and Mine fell in love. Meanwhile, Negenda and the other members of Night Raid managed to assassinate Balak, who disobeyed Esdeath's orders to stay in his room and tried to escape through a secret tunnel. Ultimately, this victory represented a major breakthrough for both the Revolutionary Army and Tatsumi. With the mission's success, the rebellion finally began, and the revolutionary troops marched toward the capital from the south. As planned, the officers in the intermediate forts resigned one by one without resistance, and the revolutionaries continued their advance. To counter this advance, the Prime Minister summoned Supreme Commander Budo to galvanize his men and brought in his son, Shura, presenting his special police group, the Wild Hunt, to confront Night Raid. Esdeath was sent west to deal with the revolution's allies, while the remaining members of the Yegers were kept on standby in the capital. They wondered why they weren't being sent to the front lines. But then Kurom suddenly fainted. While the forces marched, Night Raid's mission was to infiltrate the palace and eliminate Prime Minister Honest. Leon and Mine followed the underground sewer tunnels, while Tatsumi and Lubbock were assigned to meet with revolutionary spies already embedded in the palace. They encountered the daughter of one of the Empire's high-ranking tutors, who led them to the meeting place with the allies. However, upon arriving at the building, no one answered inside, and Lubbock noticed blood dripping from the door. He opened it, and everyone saw that the allies were dead. Suddenly, the bodies began to swell and explode, destroying the building. The girl began screaming uncontrollably, and then Shura emerged from the smoke with his team. He recognized Tatsumi as the boy who had been sent to the island with Esdeath and was curious. Tatsumi claimed this meant he was behind the dangerous beast incident and moved in to attack him. But at that moment, Budo appeared from above with his electric Imperial reliquary. He introduced himself and initiated combat, striking Tatsumi with heavy, electricity-charged punches. Tatsumi activated Incurzio and attempted to match him with equal force. Budo praised his skills and effort, but knocked him down with a powerful lightning attack. Meanwhile, Lubbock faced Shura. Shura demonstrated his martial arts techniques and used his teleportation reliquary, in addition to injecting himself with a power-enhancing drug. At first, he overwhelmed Lubbock with his infinite teleportation attacks, but Lubbock used the time to spread his wires everywhere. When he tried to lure Shura into the trap, the revolutionary girl grabbed him from behind and called out to Shura, saying she was doing this so he would free her parents. Shura instead attacked the girl, saying he had warned her not to interfere with his fun, and then turned on Lubbock, telling him it was his end. However, Lubbock counterattacked, cutting off Shura's hand holding the reliquary and revealing that he was already trapped in his trap. The situation seemed to improve, but the girl got up and stabbed Lubbock in the back before dying, begging Shura to free her parents. Seeing this, Shura laughed and said he had already killed them and that she was an idiot for not knowing. He retrieved the reliquary and then teleported Lubbock to another dimension. However, Lubbock grabbed him with his threads and dragged him along. There, they fought, and Lubbock killed him with his thread spear, piercing his heart as he had done with Sten. He then fell back through the portal with the wound in his back, but unfortunately, instead of being rescued by Tatsumi, the Wild Hunt members were waiting with raised spears. Lubbock fell directly onto them and died impaled. Tatsumi screamed his name, but was captured soon after. At the palace, Budo informed the Prime Minister of his son's death, and that he had eliminated one of the night raid assassins. Honest cried for about half a second, then shrugged and continued eating. Budo said they had captured the other and decided to torture him to death as an example to discourage the other revolutionaries. Esdeath arrived at the scene and declared she would personally handle the matter, telling herself that she would not allow anyone to be with Tatsumi. The next day, it was announced that there would be a public execution for Tatsumi. The night before, Mine tried to go alone to save him, but Akame stopped her. Mine said there was no point in trying to stop her, but Akame explained that she was there to help. Leon also appeared and said she would help, as she was the one who recruited Mine and asked her boss not to stop them. Negenda declared that, as Night Raid, it was their duty to prevent the execution, as it could undermine the revolutionary army's morale. So, they all set out to save Tatsumi. In the cell, Esdeath confronted Tatsumi and stated that he had finally joined the revolutionary army. She said that if he left her, she would forgive all his crimes, but Tatsumi replied that he could not be with someone who wreaked havoc. She tried to convince him, but upon realizing his firmness, she declared that she would carry out the execution herself and see how far her will to live would go. The next day, everyone gathered at the Colosseum before a large crowd, with the child emperor and the prime minister in attendance. Budo was in charge of security, while Esdeath walked toward Tatsumi with her sword, and he was tied to a cross in the center of the arena. She pointed her blade at Tatsumi, ripped open his shirt, and said she would begin immediately. However, at that moment, Mine shot her, forcing her to retreat. Mine then fired several energy beams that knocked her away from Tatsumi, and the rest of Night Raid flew over the crowd atop a manta ray-like creature. Mine detonated the explosives Lubbock had planted in the Colosseum in preparation for the final battle, causing Esdeath to fall underground. Budo launched a lightning attack at them, and Negenda also jumped with her Susanoo reliquary to confront Esdeath. Meanwhile, Leon joined Mine, and Akame infiltrated the palace to drive off the Yegers and assassinate the Prime Minister. Mine and Leon confronted Budo, but he proved too powerful. Leon tried to engage him in hand-to-hand combat to give Mine a chance to land a shot, but Budo paralyzed her with his electricity and withstood Mine's shots as if they were harmless. The fight continued for a while, but Budo maintained the upper hand and managed to hit Mine with a lightning attack that surpassed Pumpkin's energy beam. Meanwhile, Akame managed to enter the Prime Minister's office, but didn't find him there, only the Incursio key. She grabbed it and ran back to the Colosseum to help the others. With Mine gravely injured, she realized she was near death, driven by her feelings for Tatsumi and the gravity of the situation. She called upon Pumpkin's power one last time, asking it to respond to her emotions. She fired the most powerful beam she could, damaging and breaking Pumpkin in the process. Budo counterattacked with his electricity, but Mine's attack overpowered him and pierced through him, defeating him once and for all. After eliminating the Supreme Commander, Mine fell from the platform, and Tatsumi arrived in time with Incursio to catch her. Elsewhere, Negenda and Susanoo fought Esdeath, but she proved too strong. She easily pushed Susanoo away and froze him with a single touch. Negenda activated a secret ability, transforming Susanoo so they could even the odds, with Tatsumi rescued and Mine in critical condition. Negenda ordered everyone to retreat and attempted to restrain Esdeath alone to allow her to escape. Esdeath, however, refused and used her secret ability to freeze time. She used it to kill Susanoo and destroy its core. The situation became desperate, but Negenda supplied Susanoo with more life force as a last-ditch effort. Susanoo stood up and promised to restrain Esdeath so the others could escape. They then engaged in a fierce battle while the others fled. Tatsumi ran with Mine in his arms, trying to find help, but Mine told him it was too late, that she didn't recover quickly like Leon. She asked him to put her down, and the two kissed. Mine thanked him for everything, including his love for her, and then died in Tatsumi's arms. With this, Negenda lost Susanoo and Mine, but managed to save Tatsumi and recover Incursio, as well as eliminate Budo. With this victory, the revolutionaries advanced even further towards the capital, and Esdeath was sent to the front lines. Run talked to Wave and Kurom about the situation, saying that if they wished, they could flee, as no one would pursue them. Kurom replied that she didn't see that as an option, as she needed to settle a score with her sister. Afterward, she and Wave killed several revolutionary soldiers, and Kurom left a secret message for Akame asking her to meet her alone at the Kadai Forest facility. Akame decided to respect her younger sister's wishes and went alone, while Tatsumi pleaded with her to return alive. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister manipulated the young Emperor into activating the Supreme Reliquary, which required the Emperor's own authority to use. That night, Akame arrived at the agreed-upon location and met with Kurome. They met at the old orphanage where they grew up and reminisced about their childhood. Kurome explained that Akame had betrayed her by joining the Revolutionary Army and leaving her behind, and then the two began to fight. Kurome activated her reliquary and summoned her zombie soldiers, but coughed up blood due to her weakened health. Akame noticed this and decided to end the fight as quickly as possible. The two clashed swords, and Akame managed to dominate despite facing 3 enemies at once. Back at the palace, Wave asked Run where Kurome had gone after receiving her letter about confronting Akame, and decided to go save her. On the battlefield, the sisters' fight awakened a dormant experimental beast. The creature killed 2 powerful zombies and struck Kurome as well, but Akame saved her, and together they destroyed the monster as they had in the old days. Afterward, the two faced off again. Kurome summoned more zombies, but Akame immediately eliminated them and prepared for the final blow against her sister. At that moment, Wave appeared and pushed her away. He said he was there to stop the fight between them, but Tatsumi also arrived and pushed Wave aside. He stated that for some issues, the only way to move forward was to resolve them directly. Kurome agreed and thanked Wave for coming, saying she wished they had come closer under different circumstances. So, they watched the sisters fight to the end. In the end, Akame emerged victorious and stabbed Kurome, ending her life. They handed the body to Wave, who asked why they were all fighting. Akame replied that if he couldn't answer that question, then he had no right to wield a weapon. Then, everyone departed. At the palace, the Prime Minister led the Emperor to the Supreme Reliquary and told him to activate it, as it was his duty as Emperor to protect his people from rebellion. With the Yegers out of the way and the Revolutionary Army inside the capital, everyone decided to storm the palace and free the people from the Prime Minister's tyranny. Negenda led the revolutionaries on the front lines, while Tatsumi, Leon, and Akame infiltrated to eliminate Honest. Inside the palace, they were confronted by advanced knights, but Run appeared, saying he would deal with Night Raid. Leon decided to face him alone and urged Tatsumi and Akame to continue the mission. They asked why Run still fought alongside the Prime Minister, and he said he had also suffered under the Empire, but wanted to change things from within. However, the rebellion had thwarted his plans, and he was now resentful. Leon considered his actions immature, and the two engaged in a fierce battle. In the throne room, Tatsumi and Akame burst in and encountered the Emperor and the Prime Minister. Akame attempted to attack Honest, but was stopped by a force field protecting him. The Prime Minister revealed that the Supreme Reliquary had already been activated. At that moment, the palace collapsed, and from within emerged the Mecha Emperor Shikotazer, completely manipulated. The young emperor fired a devastating beam that killed many people and destroyed several houses in the capital. From afar, Wave observed this tragedy at Kurome's grave and decided to fight alongside the revolutionaries. Akame and the rest of the revolutionaries faced the imperial forces led by Esdeath, while Tatsumi was tasked with confronting the emperor inside the giant robot. The emperor struck Tatsumi hard, knocking him down, and at that moment, Tatsumi decided to appeal to his last hope, trying to touch the boy's heart. While fighting the emperor, Tatsumi received a relentless beating, but he wouldn't stop talking, saying that the people were suffering because of his decisions and that he was being manipulated by the Prime Minister. The young emperor, enraged, lost control and tried to silence him by stomping on his body. But Wave appeared in time and saved Tatsumi from being crushed. Run also decided to stop fighting and began helping Leon save the people of the Empire. After that, Tatsumi and Wave teamed up to face the Imperial Mecha. During the battle, Tatsumi discovered a weak spot in the armor and asked for Wave's help. Together, they managed to cause serious damage to the structure. Sensing the pain, the Emperor reacted and fired laser beams at both of them, knocking Wave down hard. Amidst the chaos, Tatsumi remembered Bulat's advice and summoned Incursio, causing him to evolve through sheer force of will. Now with gleaming golden armor and newly formed wings, Tatsumi dodged all the mecha's attacks and advanced with determination, piercing the machine with his power and destroying it completely. However, realizing that the mecha's wreckage would fall on a group of civilians, Tatsumi rushed to restrain them. He stopped the structure from falling like a true hero, saving everyone, but he lost a lot of blood in the process, and, at that moment, took his last breath. Akame ran to him and shouted, reminding him of his promise to never die. At that moment, Esdeath also arrived, and Akame told her that Tatsumi had died. With Tatsumi's downfall and the Emperor's defeat, victory was near, but Esdeath still stood in the way of freedom. She acknowledged the Empire's defeat, but asserted that her hunt was not yet over. She declared Tatsumi had died because he was weak and created an ice arena around herself and Akame. Esdeath declared that if there were no more battles, she would create new ones. Akame replied that she could not allow someone like that to continue existing in a peaceful world that so many had sacrificed to build. The two began the final battle that would decide the fate of the nation. They began exchanging blows with their swords, and at first, Akame was able to keep up with Esdeath's fighting style. However, Esdeath proved too powerful with her ice abilities. As the situation began to escalate, Akame used her secret ability and cut herself with her own blade. Murasame's poison spread through her body, allowing her to enter a demonic state, dramatically increasing her physical capabilities. She went on the attack, fighting with fury and determination, and managed to wound Esdeath's hand. The poison quickly spread through Esdeath's arm, but she cut her own arm and continued fighting. Now with only one hand, the battle remained intense, but Akame's demonic power proved superior. Esdeath was forced to use her ultimate ability, which could only be activated once per day. She stopped time just as Akame was about to attack her and plunged her sword into her rival's chest. However, she realized she had only struck an illusion. Soon after, time returned to normal and Akame appeared above, striking Esdeath with a direct hit. She revealed that she had been aware of that ability ever since Susanoo had been killed by her. Esdeath accepted her defeat, erected a wall of ice between them, and walked to Tatsumi's body. She embraced him and told him they would finally be together. And in that instant, his body vanished into thin air. With the final battle over and so many casualties as in a tragedy, all that remained was what everyone had long awaited, the end of Prime Minister Honest. Taking advantage of the chaos, Honest tried to flee, but Leone intercepted him in a secret corridor. She advanced to beat him, but he revealed his secret reliquary, which could be used only once to destroy any other reliquary. He destroyed Leone's belt and shot her with a pistol. Even so, Leone fought back, punched him in the face, and knocked him down. Honest shot Leone several times in the abdomen, but she resisted, advancing angrily and beating him until her skull was crushed. Afterward, Leone found Akame and said goodbye, hiding her injuries. She then returned to the poor neighborhood where she was born, saw the citizens rejoicing at the victory of the revolution, and silently died in an alley, bleeding out. Soon after, the young emperor was executed in a public square, and Negenda was chosen to help build the foundations of the new nation. Akame decided to head east to establish better relations with the new government and bid Negenda farewell for a while. And so we end the story of this classic. Like if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more videos.